Hello, Ryan here to review Darksiders 2, the Deathfinitive Edition. This is perhaps the best, or maybe the worst, subtitle to ever grace a video game. Nordic Games, who purchased the IP from the now defunct THQ, may have chosen this name ironically, making fun of the plethora of remasters that have graced this generation. I'll be honest, what you'll get out of the Deathfinitive Edition is largely dependent on whether you've played Darksiders 2 before. The remastering job done by Gunfire Games is commendable. However, they touched up a game that arguably didn't need touching up. The great setting, over-the-top story, and intuitive combat are still present in this version. And if this is your first experience playing Darksiders 2, this is currently the best version to pick up.
The journey so far.
Darksiders 2 has a distinct visual aesthetic that is the result of the original developers, Vigil Games, hiring a comic book artist as the art director. This produced a larger-than-life dark fantasy theme that gives the characters, world, and combat a very unique look. Because of the stylized graphics, Darksiders and Darksiders 2 have aged very well. If the art style had been more realistic and grounded, this could be a different story. However, the remastered job done here almost goes to waste. I have to be honest, I had to do a direct comparison in order to see a difference between the Deathfinitive Edition and the last-gen versions of this game. While the lighting has certainly been enhanced and textures are sharper, the overall aesthetic of the game is still exactly the same, enhanced by the visual upgrade, but by no means creating a new experience. In short, the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 versions of this game still look fantastic, and getting the Deathfinitive Edition just for the graphical upgrade may not be the best idea. But maybe you haven't played Darksiders 2 before and you were looking to give it a shot. That's great because, in my opinion, this is one of the best original franchises to come out of last generation, and Darksiders 2 is the better of the two games. The series is famous for its derivative nature, taking elements from other franchises and combining them all and twisting them into something unique and oftentimes successful. The combat is typical combat-driven hack-and-slash fare, similar to God of War or Devil May Cry. You do upgrade your abilities through an RPG mechanic that has you putting points into either offensive or defensive abilities depending on your playstyle. There's also a loot system that feels half-baked and unnecessary. It really just becomes a matter of making sure you have the best armor and weapons equipped rather than strategically picking the right item for the right moment. It's really the only major issue I have with the game, and I think it could have done without it. The previous game had you more focusing on upgrading your weapons and upgrading your armor rather than picking up new ones every time you defeat an enemy, and I think that's a better system. The world is structured similarly to a Legend of Zelda game where you have a large hub world with smaller dungeon areas branching off from it. In order to access new areas, you must acquire new gear, and it always feels like you are progressing. Acquiring new gear and going back to areas you weren't previously able to access is satisfying, and the gameplay loop keeps you entertained for the 20 or so hours it takes to complete the game.
Rider has come to the realm.
Not another one.
Combine that with a fairly standard and yet entertaining dark fantasy story, memorable and well-voiced characters, and an appropriately epic soundtrack, and you have the makings of a terrifically entertaining experience that is well worth your time.
I can still feel the fire itself rumbling deep in the earth.
I'll take my chances. Your shaman has offered me a talisman if I bring her the materials.
You'd be wise to accept then. Her craft is mighty powerful.
Where do I find Stalker's bone?
It is difficult to review a remaster, especially one for a game that only came out 3 years ago. The work that went into remastering this game is commendable, but ultimately wasted when you directly compare it to the previous versions. And while it is nice to see a Darksiders game on the current-gen consoles, the experience feels somewhat incomplete without the first game. You won't be totally lost diving into Darksiders 2 first, but there are references made to characters and events that may make newcomers wonder what they missed by not first playing the original. And then there is almost nothing here for seasoned fans of the series. Nordic Games has been honest stating that they are releasing this game to gauge interest in a sequel, but I wish they had done more to entice the old audience to repurchase the game, including the first game, or making a worthy collector's edition would have gone a long way. But as it stands, Darksiders 2 Deathfinitive Edition is a bare minimum effort. It really only makes sense for newcomers or the most die-hard fans looking to support the franchise in any way possible. All in all, Darksiders 2 is a fantastic game on its own, and this version does nothing to diminish what I believe to be one of last generation's hidden gems.
This is a Maker's Forge.
Nay, the Maker's Forge is lost to us, silenced by the hands of corruption. But in its depths we once crafted the dark towers of hell and the cities of heaven.
Now you make trinkets.
And you, one of the four, now seek the aid of the Makers? I guess we've all fallen from high places.